Thanks, Isabella, for joining me today. To kick us off, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Izabella or Bella Pivo. I'm a third year at Northeastern University from Los Angeles, California, and I'm studying a combined major of business and communications with a concentration in entrepreneurial startups and a minor in mindfulness studies.
Cool. And you are the CEO of IDEA right now, which is
Yep.
the student-led venture accelerator for Northeastern affiliated teams. Kind of curious, like how you first learned about the program.
Yeah, so I was in the Explore program in my very first semester, which is the undecided program, and I got introduced into entrepreneurship in a very wacky way. There was a pitch competition with Dunkin' Donuts that was happening on campus. And as a previous Starbucks barista, I was like, why? Like, why not? Might as well jump in on this. I could definitely make a drink. And from there, it's just been an upward trajectory. I saw that there was an accelerator for called the Husky Startup Challenge, which is only for a semester. And then I learned about IDEA through that. So from having my first startup idea, I learned about IDEA and then got involved that way. I was part of a different organization called the Entrepreneurs Club, and then I was tapped by faculty to join IDEA after my spring semester of my second year.
Cool. And before we dive into the questions, I want to just make sure like the audience has all the background information about IDEA. So I mentioned It's student-led, it's a venture accelerator. It's just for Northeastern affiliated teams, so students, faculty, and alumni. And then businesses can apply for up to $30,000 in grants on a bi-monthly basis when they're in your program's go stage, which is sort of like the final stage of the program. Is there any other background information that you think is important for the audience to know?
Yeah, I think something that's super important is that we are not specifically application based. Like if you come in with something, we're not going to deny you or like accept you based off of that idea. Everybody who comes in with an idea or not even an idea, we also help with brainstorming, which I think is really important because we support the venture process from pre-idea, just from interested in entrepreneurship to then launching it and getting you that funding.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great like transition, I guess, to like the first question I had. And most of the following questions will be directed towards just helping like Northeastern affiliated founders who are considering IDEA. So you mentioned you are not application based, but I did see on your website that like you had to attend a venture information session. Can you just talk more about like how you actually enter the program?
Yeah, so we are currently we have our new website up and running, which is being transferred from our IT team to get the new one up there. But so even though it's called New Venture Information Session, it's rebranded to be called Orientation now because the impression was, oh, you had to have a venture in order to become part of IDEA. And that's not the case. We have implemented a new software that launched actually yesterday, and that's an online accelerator platform, what we call the brain of IDEA. And so in order to get involved in the process, even if you just don't have an idea, but you just want to be a member on the platform, you attend an orientation and then you get to be a member on this software called Babel. And that's what we use. So that's the very first step. And then from there, your first module is a venture and advisor pairing form, where then IDEA, the e-board, will manually pair you with an advisor from our system. And then from there, you can choose to meet with them or not. And then you move through the process by them approving your worksheets and meeting with them.
Cool. And I saw on your website, the program is sort of broken down into 3 stages named Ready, Set, Go. Can you just share more detail, just like what happens at each stage of the program?
Yeah. So every venture, we know that people who come into IDEA, maybe they ran a business in high school and they want to continue it and they're generating revenue, or maybe you've just had a shower thought. You're like, how can I actually make this into a reality? Those 2 very different ends of the spectrum, we take them. But the very important thing that we want to emphasize is that you do have to start in the ready stage. The ready stage typically involves validation. You're doing customer discovery, and it's like the very early iteration of just your idea. You then do a pitch to go from ready into the set stage. The set stage is building out your entire business model. You're probably building your first prototype. You're actually coding an application. If it's an application, you are finishing up your formula, like let's say if you are a consumer good, and then you have to pitch again to go from set into the go stage. The set stage tends to be the meatier part of IDEA because it's where you're building out the whole entire business model. You also get access to the entrepreneurs in residence at that point, and they conduct whiteboarding sessions to help you with your business model. The entrepreneurs in residence are people who have had 10+ years experience in startups and entrepreneurship education. So they're really going to give you that thorough background that you need to like build your business, even if you have no business background, which is something that we're really focused on, that interdisciplinary aspect. In the go stage, you're actually executing on that go-to-market strategy, hence where the gap fund comes in. The gap fund is supposed to fill that gap of, ordering your first from your first manufacturer and getting that first batch, or maybe it is trying to get like your first like customers and you need to like develop a little bit more. It's just to fulfill that gap for $10,000. And then, as you mentioned, you can apply to that on a bi-monthly basis to get up to $30,000.
Cool. What does the application process look like for the grants?
Yeah, so for the GAP fund, you have to be a go stage venture, and it opens up around a month before the actual pitch. You have to, upload your pitch deck. You have to demonstrate the need for the GAP fund. So it's essentially just an online application. And then we have analysts on our team that look at all of the applications and they write up a one-pager for every single gap fund venture that has applied. And then we take those applications to our advisory board and they review them and decide which ones they want to see pitch. We have upwards of, I think, 8 to 10 pitches per round, depending on how many applicants come through. And then from there, we will designate how much every venture gets. We never cap the amount that we give out per like gap fund round, but you can only get up to $10,000 per pitch.
Gotcha. And then what do you see as like the biggest opportunities to improve IDEA in terms of how you guys support founders?
Yeah, I definitely think something that we could improve upon is, since our software is so new, we're still implementing. I mean, not to say that it can improve. I mean, we are actively improving it right now because the software is so new, and it's the educational aspect of it. We're really looking to tap into our ventures that have been successful in fundraising, for example. Like we've had a venture that's gone on Shark Tank, so we want them to create a module of like, what's it like to create a Kickstarter, and like, what does it mean like when you get on Shark Tank or you're trying to get onto these, popular media platforms to share your idea. So we're really going to be tapping into our network of people who've been successful using our resources and building out that education for the ventures that are going to be going through the program again. The reason we haven't had that in the past is just because IDEA it's been around since 2009 and it was in need of a facelift. So that's what we're doing now. And so I think that's the biggest opportunity to be able to make that education as robust as possible.
Cool. You just highlighted some of the successes of companies that have come out of the program. Kind of curious, like what percentage of student founders that you guys work with continue on their businesses after graduation?
Yeah, so I feel like to start off, our main goal of IDEA is not just to create like, unicorns, or not just to create companies that get venture capital funding. We also are really emphasized on the educational part of entrepreneurship. So you can fail safely in an environment that you are not, you're not promised to some terms, or you're not required to give back any money, or we don't give back, or we don't take any equity. So all of the companies and all of the things that you make are totally your own. So that educational part is really important to us. So even if you don't have a company that's successful in your undergraduate career, you can continue to come back into the IDEA program and use all of our resources and go through the process to make the next successful business idea. That being said, sometimes people start a venture, they work on it for 2 years with an idea, and then they realize, oh, this is no longer needed, or maybe they found something and they're like, oh, I need to start over. That's totally fine. So they may restart a venture, at another point in time once they've graduated, or maybe they're in their graduate degree now instead of their undergraduate. So in terms of, I feel like continuing with the one startup that continues to be successful, people continue working on their venture all the time. You can't see it in this video, but above these, there's tiles up here that are all around the IDEA lab. And those tiles are ventures that have been launched. And there's I believe there's over 70 launched ventures that we've had, which means they are able to self-sustain on their own revenue, or have raised over $200,000 in external funding, which is really important to us as well. So a lot of those ventures are still operating, and even those ventures who are not at that point of being launched, they're also still operating. So I'd say about 75% are still working on their venture ideas, but those who have left the IDEA program and decide to engage whether or not they have a venture is a lot higher, like at least 95 to like 99% of the people that work with IDEA in some capacity are staying with us.
Cool. And now I want to transition to questions around helping like students at Northeastern who want to join IDEA's internal team. Can you give an overview of like how you guys recruit internal team members and what that process looks like?
Yeah, so we do it on a semesterly and a yearly basis. So the roles, well, first of all of our roles are for undergraduates specifically, with the exception of our legal fellow, who is a graduate law student working on one of their co-ops, which is for many reasons why they're a graduate student. But we really like that we are undergraduate ran, because we know what it's like. A lot of us have our own companies or maybe had a startup in high school, and we know what it's like to relate to people who are on this campus, since people who are on this campus are mostly undergraduates, and we're able to relate in that sense. So we try to keep it undergraduates, and we have some administration that helps us, but it's very much student driven. Like whatever our ideas have, like they just go, which I think is really, really important. So as for the yearly roles, the CEO role is one that opens up every year. So I will be ending sometime in June. And then the venture director or directors, depending on the year, will then be hired, same on like a yearly basis. Same thing with the investment coordinator and the venture advisor coordinator. Sometimes the stage coordinators may stay the same. It depends. We allow people who get hired for the fall season to like reapply for their role or like stick with their role, if they've been good with their role for the spring semester. It also depends whether or not our students go on co-op. So it depends. Some roles may open up on a semesterly basis. Those ones tend to be ready stage coordinator, go stage coordinator, set stage coordinator. And then our analyst roles will also change on a semesterly basis, depending if they're moving or not. And then of course, marketing team, logistics / operations, and the technology team. The tech director also stays for a year, but those can kind of fluctuate on a semester basis on who leaves and like who doesn't. And it's an application based, by the way. And then we review those.
Cool. And what are you guys looking for when you're selecting students for the various roles?
Yeah, we don't think that you have to have a business like right now, like working on it. You just have to have that entrepreneurial spirit and desire to want to work with ventures. The beauty of IDEA is that we do have a lab. So I'm currently sitting in the IDEA lab, and this is essentially the hub of where entrepreneurs are meeting all the time on campus. So what we like to look for in our e-board are people who you can come to the lab and you can talk to ventures, because ventures are coming in all the time and you want to work with them and not try to be a backseat driver in like developing their startup. Being curious and also being very kind when it comes to developing this process, and knowing how to ask the right questions are really important. Because a lot of ventures, they have a lot of assumptions, and they have a lot of sometimes ego that's like, no, this is going to be the best idea. So I think with our management team, we want them to be patient and kind and inquisitive, and not, trying to fight with a venture, but instead trying to improve that educational journey of an entrepreneur.
Cool. And as you onboard new team members to the internal team, I guess like how do you train them to give like good advice, to ask the right questions, to be generally helpful to the student founders?
Yeah, so the framework that we work on, and I guess how we kind of start it, we know that everybody has their own way of delivering advice and their own experiences with startups. So we just say, try to, be really empathetic, like with the founder, put yourself in their shoes. But as for, I guess, like particular questions, we always say, ask them what their problem statement is. Just keep asking why. I think that we really focus on that why part, or like why and how, just to get the founders talking more about themselves. We really try to let our e-board members know that it's not about you talking and overtaking the meeting. It's about hearing their idea and letting them also like hear themselves, because that's the most important part. It definitely takes a lot of like psychology, understanding about that. But I feel like we pretty much like gear your e-board members in the right way to ask questions to be more like why or how, to get the founders thinking for themselves and not giving them the ideas.
Cool. And like this is like a very open program to the student founders that have ideas or businesses that they're working on. Kind of curious, like how many businesses are you working on like each semester? Like how many people are in this program?
Yeah, so overall we have over 500 ventures and growing, soon to have probably over 600. So with our new software, not all of our ventures are in it yet, but
Mhm.
every semester, like historically, we've had over 150 ventures engage each semester.
Yeah.
So our new software, it soft launched on October 4th, and then the official launch was yesterday. And so far we have over 70 startups. So not even a month into this new software, we already have 70. So we're on a really fast upward trajectory. That's redundant, but trajectory to get even more this semester.
Yeah. And then how big is like the internal team? And I guess like what does the time commitment look like? And I imagine that varies based on the role. Like I know you're on your co-op and pretty much working on this full time, but for students that are still have like their schoolwork, I guess like how much time they spend on this org?
Yeah. So the leads can expect probably like 10 to 15 hours a week, that being the venture directors, the venture advisor, coordinator. The stage coordinators do get a little bit like less of that. So it could be like maybe upwards of 8 to 10 hours for them, depending how many ventures are wanting to meet with them. CEO roles, obviously, like I'm full-time, like I'm 40 hours a week right now. And next semester I'll be like 20 hours a week. So I do most of that. And then the analysts, since they are only really active during the gap fund months, they are pretty much around like maybe not even 5 hours a week. It really depends on how much they also want to engage. So it's kind of like as you get up into the like from like a stage coordinator level or like a director level, your time commitment obviously goes up. But yeah, but it's very fun. You also asked how large it is. So the team used to be about like 45 people. When it came to like my time to be CEO, I shrunk the team, so we're now at about 25 people, and looking to possibly expand in different areas next semester as we take on different initiatives, which I think is also really important because the team size can fluctuate depending on the focus of the CEO that year. So like last year, they're really focused on brand, so they had an entire brand team. For me, I'm going to be very focused on the educational part, so we're going to have an education transformation team. So it always fluctuates.
Cool. And for people who watch this video that are not Northeastern affiliated, but maybe want to like plug in and help this community,
Yeah.
like what's the best way to do that? I saw you guys have like coaches on your
Yeah.
website. Is it through that, or is it just
Yes.
like reaching out to you and you find a way for them to plug in, or how do they help?
Yeah, I think it depends. So the main way that we do it is through coaches, although that has now rebranded to venture advisors, just for like professionals, they wanted venture advisor instead. So there's that. So those are usually, they could be graduates, they could be alumni, they could be people who do just like want to help out because they have some like expertise in some area. We have that opportunity for people who want to get involved that way. They tend to not be undergraduates though. I would say like, if you're like an undergraduate and want to get involved, that's something more towards like the student management team. So I would like talk to me, talk to anyone else on the team that you can find on LinkedIn, to help in that way. When it comes to like, venture capitals or like investors, we do have investors and VCs that are part of our network, that also get uploaded to our software. And we usually invite them in, or even if you are like an expert in a go-to-market strategy, for example, we'll conduct specific workshops on certain themes and then invite professionals to, be speakers on a panel or like, maybe host a workshop. So we have a lot of room for, if you want to host a workshop with idea, open to that. If you want to become a venture advisor and help in like a one-to-one capacity with ventures, we also have that. And then if you just want to get involved and like come to our community hours, we can also do that if you're in Boston.
Cool. And then last question, is there like anything I didn't ask about that you think is important to know for either a student founder considering joining the idea program or for a student who wants to join the internal team?
Yeah, I would say our main focus, that I really love to highlight is the interdisciplinary part. So IDEA actually stands for the Interdisciplinary Entrepreneurship Accelerator. And this is because I have a philosophy of how like the best startup teams are formed. And that is having experts and operators. Operators are business kids who know how to make, a business model. They know, they know how to do revenue models, go-to-market strategy, all of those operational things. The experts are those that have specific industry expertise. Maybe it's biology or theater, environmental science. And together you can look at the problems that exist in the specific industry that the expert has access to, and they can bring it to someone who's an operator, like a business student, and says, hey, I have this problem. How can I make a solution for this, and how can like we scale that to then go to the entire industry? I have no business experience. What do I do? When they come together, I think it creates a very powerful solution, because you have the problem and you have the way to scale it and make it successful. And we really focus on bringing those two people together and getting them to create impactful companies. So even if you don't think you're a business person, we have all of the tools you'll need, where you don't need to know how to create a business. You just need to have a problem or an idea that you want to work on.
Awesome. Thanks, Isabel, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.